What is wisdom? Researchers have tried to learn what people consider wisdom to be, for example by asking them if they know anyone wise or what kind of traits signify wisdom. Wisdom seems to be connected to knowledge, but it is not knowledge itself, which is something else. Real experts have the most knowledge about some, usually just one very specific thing. While knowing much about that thing, the expert may not be very good at making good decisions or to generalize about their special field to broader contexts. These seem to require wisdom. So, wisdom is not knowledge itself, but rather the right kind of application of knowledge. It is not just effective use of knowledge, but also the use of knowledge for the right kind of purpose. It has to lead to the best result, but not just for the person using the knowledge themselves, but for some greater good in some way. A wise person takes others into consideration, at the very least, possibly even more than just other people. This requires understanding what is valuable to oneself and to others. Wisdom is very much related to values. A wise person has sound judgment, being able to broadly assess ethical, practical, political, possibly even aesthetic aspects of the issue at hand. While acquiring wisdom requires maturity, it is not acquired simply by growing old. It is important to recognize that one's biological age and one's developmental age are two different things. Acquiring wisdom generally seems to require life experience, and people do not acquire that just by growing old. Besides experiencing things by oneself, it is probably possible to learn similar things from art, especially literature, but why not also theater plays or movies? But those have to be varied and especially good. They need to go deeper than most entertainment. It seems that a working definition of wisdom could be the ability to use knowledge with the guidance of broad life experience for the greater good, whatever that may be in a given situation. Since philosophy is the love or pursuit of wisdom, perhaps I could impart some of the wisdom I have acquired so far. What are the most important teachings of philosophy? The following is what I wrote for the very first course on philosophy, which I was co-teaching over a decade ago. I had learned that much over the previous decade or so myself, and I still think the following are good advice to live by. Epistemic uncertainty. The most important thing is to learn to cope with epistemic and other sorts of uncertainty, acknowledging this uncertainty. Certainty is merely a psychological feeling, and it is an epistemic error. Absolute epistemic certainty cannot be attained, or even if it could, it is methodologically better to assume it cannot. The plurality of alternative options. Besides the known alternatives, there are others. Options or allegedly necessary courses of action are often presented without properly assessing alternatives or even without attempting to think of alternatives at all. It is far too easy to pay attention only to the first things that come to mind. You never have to accept the offered choice. You can think of alternatives, different possibilities yourself. Sources and plagiarism. A source is the origin of an idea or opinion. Plagiarism is the presentation of someone else's idea or work as your own. Try to remember all your sources. Where did you learn each bit of knowledge from? This includes the obvious, such as books, magazines, websites, and movies, but also other people, such as your parents, friends, and teachers. The credibility of the source has an impact on the credibility of an idea. If you realize that an old source of yours is not trustworthy, you may have to reassess what you learned from that source. If you don't remember your sources, you are unable to do this. That means you may inadvertently hold on to beliefs you would prefer to examine critically, if you only remembered where you learned it from. My opinion is not me. It is extremely important to distinguish between your self and your beliefs and opinions, which ought to be only provisional anyway, accepted as just the best for now. You should not identify with a given belief, system of beliefs, or even a way of thinking. Even identities are separate from your self, and you can change them. The self is a matter of definition. You can decide on it on your own, and you can alter or completely change it. Identities are rarely rationally chosen, while hold on to anything that is not rational. Criticism and criticality. Being critical is not the same as being negative. Being critical means being rational, being able to even praise things or people when that is warranted. What is important is the use of arguments, being able to ground your views on something better than a feeling or some vague notion. The same applies to both positive and negative comments. The presentation of negative comments. The best way to present criticism is to formulate it into a question. This avoids the knee-jerk reaction to reject and oppose it. It is also more polite than just accusing someone of a mistake. It is especially bad rhetoric to present one's criticism as the truth or in an aggressive manner. Presenting them as questions also teaches epistemic humility, as it teaches you to doubt your own opinion as well and to avoid proselytization. It is important to remember that the criticism is very likely to be faulty itself. The principle of benevolent interpretation. The principle of charity. Interpret others as if they were intelligent and rational, or as if their beliefs were maximally true. The principle of humanity. Interpret others as if their beliefs were connected to each other and to reality in ways that make them as much like ourselves as possible. And finally, my principle of benevolent interpretation, which can be seen as an addition to the previous. Try to interpret others as if they were ethically, intellectually, and epistemically excellent. Calm reflection. Charlatans and hoaxers often want you to act quickly because they know it is easier to fool you if you don't have time to think things through and possibly to ask what others think about the thing. Therefore, it is wise to try and do the opposite. So take your time and look for other opinions. Keep on thinking. You can learn a lot of other important things from philosophy or life in general. These have been what I consider to be some of the most important lessons of philosophy. You can think differently.